Okay. I have the honor and pleasure of being a moderator for this program. Um, the first question and the way you introduce yourself is you could say your name, um, tell us a little bit about yourself, and why you're running to be on the school board. And as you may know, you just press that button, make it light up with red, and then you're talking. Um, the last time we did this, 2019, we had a way of deciding who would go first, and we weren't clever enough to do that this time around. So we're just going to take it in the order, starting from my left to right, and then as we go, we'll just keep going around in terms of the questions, so everyone will kind of have an opportunity. Obviously, in the interest of time, we're not going to have a buzzer or anything, but just be conscious of like giving the other candidates an opportunity to answer those same questions. So starting with our first candidate, Liz, go ahead and tell us your name and a little bit about yourself and why you're running.
Hi, EBAN. Thanks for coming out tonight. My name is Elizabeth Rolowitz. I go by Liz. I'm a parent and Evanston community member, and I've been honored to serve on District 202 ETHS School Board for almost 4 years now. And I hope to be able to continue to serve another 4 years for our students and for our community. I've spent the last 10 years focused entirely on child welfare, community building, and educational equity. During my time on the board, I have worked through a pandemic and remote learning, which had an unprecedented effect on our students' learning and well-being. When we shifted to remote learning, we saw an increase in mental health issues, which we continue to address. In 2022, the board went through a thorough and transparent process and hired a new superintendent, and all the while I advocated for student well-being and success. My current concerns are continuing to address the predictability of race in academic outcomes, supporting our special education students and families to guide towards college and career, continuing to expand mental health services, and addressing school safety. I want to continue my board work and serving students because there's always work to be done. My hope is that collaborating with the board and the superintendent, that we can improve the opportunities and experiences for all students with a focus on our students who need the most supports. This would include dismantling racist structures that harm our Black and brown students, supporting our students with IEPs, increasing mental health awareness and supports, and creating a safe environment for all students. Our goal at ETHS is to create college and career pathways so that every student has a viable plan when they graduate and that they meet future success as a result. I want every student to be able to utilize the many opportunities available at ETHS and to reach their highest potential. I believe that I can help do that in service to our students. Thank you for coming out tonight and for showing support for our students.
Hi, I was going to say good morning. It's been a long day somewhere. When I started here at ETHS as a parent, I feel like I started with my son. I joined EBAN, so this feels very familiar. This is the place I came to connect with other parents, to become more familiar with Evanston Township as a parent. And so I remember I'm sitting here just reminiscing of the many conversations we had in this room. So I'm Monique Parsons. This is my third term running for a school board. That equals 8 years. So I've been here for a long time. My son graduated and I'm still here. But it's truly an honor to serve my community. I was born and raised in Evanston, and I just happen to believe that in order to serve our community, you have to love our community. And I absolutely love ETHS and what it has done, what it meant to my family and my son. And so because of that, I'm committed to working on behalf of our students. I not only do I serve our community, but I work in this community. I've been working at McGaw YMCA for 19 years. I'm currently the president and CEO of McGaw YMCA. So my community connections run real deep, and I've learned as I've been here over the past 8 years that in order for Evanston Township to support our students, we really need to understand the community they thrive in. And so I'm able to connect with our community at a different, I would say, point of view that most of my board colleagues have been able to do. I'm in the community. I partner with other nonprofits in the community, and I do all that so that our student is able to get the best that this community has to offer. So I'm running again because we, as you all know, we still have so much work to do. While this is a great place, we still have students that are not seen. We still have students that have not figured out how to re-engage. The pandemic did not help. We were dealing with that before the pandemic, but it definitely made it more intense. I'm also running because we have a new superintendent, and I feel some responsibility after being part of the hiring process to hire Dr. Campbell to support him the best way that I can. I absolutely believe that the school board is equally responsible for the success of our students. And if we are not in alignment with the goals of the administration and the goals that we set forth and in supporting our superintendent and supporting our students, then that plays into how well our students will leave here when they graduate. So it's critical that that the board or individual that runs for a school board understands that they're accountable for the achievement of our students, just like the administration is, just like the teachers are. We are not exempt from that. So until we can fully say that every student has left ETHS prepared for their next, I'm going to stay committed to make sure that our students get the best. So that's why I'm here.
Thank you so much for having us today. My name is Kristen Scotty, and yeah, I'm running because I'm looking to bring disability representation to the board. That's my primary reason for running. I'm also looking to bring a more intersectional approach to the equity work that's being done here. I really appreciate a lot of the equity work that's been done over the years. I think that we made major strides in the work that's been done here. But I do think that there's a bit of a failure to kind of focus on students that are most marginalized because of intersecting marginalized identities. So in that, I mean looking at the overlap of race and income, or race and disability, race and marginalized genders, LGBTQ and so forth. So I think that taking that approach, that more intersectional approach, we can hopefully create more equitable policies and so forth, and hopefully targeted supports where we can really kind of lift up the students that are struggling the most, and hopefully see improvements in our graduation rates and so forth. And in terms of the disability support, when we look at our data, we see that our students on IEPs, they have the lowest graduation rates, the highest discipline rates, lowest participation in extracurriculars. Like, it's across the board and everything that we measure. And the largest impact is felt by our Black and Brown students, our Black and Brown disabled students. So I think that carrying that intersectional approach into specifically special education is important. So that's what I'm looking to do. I'm disabled myself, neurodivergent and otherwise. I have a disabled kid in the district. So that's my primary purpose in being here. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Leah Picars, and I'm running for the school board because I want to serve my community, and I want to be able to work with others to help guide ETHS to reaching its goals and its potential. I believe that for the health of our community, it's integral that we are offering all of our students here at ETHS an equitable and excellent education. I believe that all students deserve an honest and inclusive education, particularly in today's climate, where in some cases, in some places, academic freedom is being attacked and censorship is being imposed. I retired just in June as a counselor here. I worked here for 21 years, and I still very much feel a part of ETHS. This place feels like home. And this community I've now lived in for 22 years. I care deeply about the students in our community. I just feel like my work is not done. And I believe I'm in a unique position to advocate for the students of ETHS based upon my firsthand experience and knowledge. I think I'll be in a position to be able to really ask some critical questions and have a real understanding of what happens here at ETHS. And I plan to stay informed on what is happening here at ETHS moving forward. I started out in education as a high school Spanish teacher, and then, as I said, I was a counselor here for 21 years. I was also involved in the Teachers Council here, the union, on the executive committee, and was on 2 contract negotiations teams. Been part of a lot of different committees and initiatives, things like the Post-High School Planning Committee, ETHS Scholarships Co-Facilitator, the District Equity Leadership Team, lots of different things. And I'm the step-parent of 2 ETHS grads. So the things that I think there's always a lot of issues and challenges, as well as successes here at the high school, but my highest priorities focus on racial equity and inclusion, social emotional learning and support, college and career readiness, and school safety. I think that there are students who are just flourishing and thriving. We have so many resources, wonderful teachers, but some students are still being left behind and struggle. And I want to make sure that we're really evolving in our work to address those gaps. So we know that there's still a gap that persists in terms of academic opportunities and outcomes for students based on their racial status, gender identity, income, disability status, et cetera. So I think that as a school board, we can't let up on our efforts to disrupt systemic racism and all types of discrimination. We need to provide all students an academically challenging and supportive education. All students and staff should be able to feel safe physically and emotionally in the school. We have to always work to make sure that we have a healthy culture and climate here at the high school. I think it's important to continue to work to affirm students' identities and really demonstrate our belief in each student's capabilities based on our actions, not just on our words. So I'm looking forward to answering your questions. I'd be honored to have your support, and I'm really excited to do this work.
Okay, we have quite a few questions to get to, but what I would say is, given that this is EBAN, we are going to have questions relative to the student and parent population that we serve. But the first question I want to ask, and we'll start that way and coming back, is outside of that. But just so you know, we will jump into questions relevant to EBAN. But the first question, and these are questions that were submitted, is how would you describe an effective school board member?
I think an effective school board member does their homework, really pours over the information that they receive as part of the board packet, but also I think is someone who remains very involved in the community, talks to to all different types of stakeholders, is open to and seeks out multiple points of view. And so is informed so that when things are being discussed, you can ask informed, thoughtful, critical questions so that we are truly considering what is best to move our students and our school community forward.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the does their homework as well. I think that you have to stay well-informed, basically on everything, the legal landscape, the, economic landscape, the, just everything. Read the board packets before they come out, like all of them. Keep on looking at the data, interrogating the data. But then also, you have to be asking questions. And that's a huge part of the reason that I'm running, is I feel like there's been kind of a failure in that, in some of these things, especially with the disability stuff. But you can't be afraid to ask questions. So speaking up, and that's not like, it's a back and forth between other board members, between the administration and the board, and it's not a disrespect thing, right? Like, it's a working relationship. Everybody is better because you're not afraid to talk about things and to discuss and ask the questions. But also, like Leah said, connecting with the community, all of the community, reaching out, not expecting the community to come to the board, and really making sure that you're going outside of your own circle and reaching out to everybody. I think that that's important.
So I believe an effective board member understands their role, and they also understand who they supervise. Effective board member is not in the classroom. It is not our responsibility to dictate or tell teachers how to teach. We are not educational professionals. We come with our own views, our own beliefs, our own biases, and an effective school board member needs to understand that and center students first, all students. An effective school board member understands that it's all students who matter, and we definitely pay attention to those that are most marginalized. As I stated earlier, an effective board member also understands that they are equally accountable for the success of all students, that it's not handed down just to the principal, but how we behave, how we engage with our staff and our teachers, how we demonstrate confidentiality, how we talk to each other, how we treat our superintendent, all plays into the achievement of our students. So it goes beyond understanding the packet. The packet is a given. You're supposed to read the packet and understand the data, but it's also how you behave. As a board member, you will become a leader of this community. This is the only high school in Evanston. It is one of the most prestigious high schools in the world. So you have to understand that when you step into this role, and understand what that carries. So yes, it's long hours, it's a lot of pages to read, but it also means that there's a certain mindset that you have in fulfilling this duty, which is a privilege to have, and understanding it as such.
I think for an effective school board member, I think first and foremost, they need to really love the students and have a passion for students and education. I think that that's really the basis of all of the work that we do. And someone who's willing to go out into the community and talk to parents and talk to students and listen, basically. I mean, we have to be a great listener on all levels. I also think that an effective school board member is somebody who is willing to educate themselves on topics going on at the high school that aren't necessarily coming up in our board work. There's a whole lot going on beyond just the scope of what we learn about and hear about in our board meetings. And I think that we need to work respectfully with one another on the board, and of course, work well with the superintendent and be supportive of his ideas and his vision for what he wants to do for the school, but also being willing to push back and ask questions if needed, if we feel like it's in the best interest of the students, to be able to push back on issues that we maybe think are harmful. And so I think, it's a big deal to be a board member at ETHS. We're the anchor in the community. It's a huge honor. And I think that it needs to be just taken really seriously, and we have to represent the school.
I'll do the next question back to you, which is regarding the Black student population. How have each of you interacted and heard their voices during your campaign? How have you heard those?
So we did have, recently, we had a small forum of student voices at Yo Fresh, and that was really wonderful to hear them come out into the community and talk to us about their concerns. And they were able to ask us questions, and we were able to ask them questions. And so I think just being open to listening to students and seeking them out in the community and talking to parents and connecting with their children that way is really important, because they have the greatest insight into the school, and they know what's going on, and we need to be able to understand it at a student level and not just a sort of academic or board level. And so I think that just making sure that we are listening to the community and what the students' needs are.
So the interesting thing about working in this community, especially at a place like the YMCA, people know where to find me. So there's nowhere I can't go. But that's the reason why I decided to serve. I wanted to be accessible to our community and to our students and to our parents, our Black parents that find it difficult to navigate a space like ETHS. So along with having a big family and all my nieces and nephews, being at ETHS, going through District 65, my son, I go to church in this community. I shop in this community. And so I have constant conversations with students that I hire that are from ETHS to work at McGaw YMCA. And so I don't wait for them to approach me. I'm always approaching them, and sometimes, they're caught off guard because I just want to know how their experience is. And they're very honest, and they let me know, and if it needs to be taken further, I take it further. And I also want to, make sure that that they also see someone that is in our community, that grew up in our community, that's serving our community. It is important that our students see and have representation and that they have access, that it doesn't mean that they're far away or somebody that they don't know or that they only see and can't have a conversation with. And so, I really, honestly, I don't do this for me. I do this because I'm trying to lead for our future generation. And so I stay connected. Youth development has been a part of my life even before I went to college. So every career I've had has been around youth, from the Boys and Girls Club to juvenile justice, to working in day treatment programs, to spending the past 19 years of my life at McGaw YMCA centered around youth. So there's really absolutely nothing that I don't do where I'm not in contact with a young person, because I feel like that's my responsibility.
Yeah, so connecting with young people has been like the favorite part of my campaign. And I'm not a politician, so the rest of the campaign stuff, like, it's exhausting. But reaching out, that's been a huge part of what I've been doing, is reaching out to parents and then trying to talk to the kids and stuff like that. And because I'm, running a lot on a disability platform, I've been disabled my whole life. I know that the Black disability experience is very different than the white disability experience. And I needed to understand how different it was specifically at ETHS. So Black disabled students and Black disabled families were a group that I reached out to specifically. So yeah, I've talked to a lot of Black students. I've talked to Black disabled students. But yeah, talking to the students has been the best part of my campaign.
Well, I've obviously up through the campaign, my life was working with students, and that's the best part of the job is really interacting and getting to know your students and their lives. Since I've done the campaign, what I've been able to do is, since I'm kind of a class of 22 graduate, as are the students. So I've been keeping in touch with some of my students more like through social media and that kind of thing. And we have both had the recent experience of being at the high school these past some years. One of my students who is not home, is at a college out east, in fact helped me recruit 2 students on my campaign committee. Those students are actually white and Latinx. They're not Black. The student I worked with was Black. But I think that the student voice is really, really important, and it's something I enjoy in really keeping up with students. I think that the forum that Liz mentioned was a really wonderful opportunity to talk to the Evanston Youth Advocacy Committee, and I think it's something that I'd like to continue to see the work that they're doing along with other student groups. They were really, really great to ask questions, and they were really honest and really forthcoming about how they really feel and what they see as happening at the high school, and I think that that's really important.
Okay. Starting with Liz. What initiatives do you feel would change the culture and climate at ETHS to allow Black parents to feel comfortable and included with initiatives at ETHS?
Well, I mean, I think that you're definitely talking about a familiar problem with, if Black parents are not feeling comfortable at ETHS, it matches the fact that we know that some of our Black students also don't feel comfortable at ETHS. And we also know that perhaps some of our teachers of color don't always feel comfortable at ETHS. As far as specific initiatives that could be done, I'm thinking about creating, other opportunities such as EBAN, but other opportunities for Black parents to be in the school and to have access to people who work here and be able to ask questions and seek out resources and seek out resolution for things. I think we could do a better job with having a parent affinity group in the same way that we have student affinity groups, and so that parents can be together and feel supported in that way. And any other initiatives, I think just creating that culture and climate change is important, because that's how we're going to have all of our Black stakeholders feeling more comfortable in the school. So I think that our superintendent probably has some great ideas about this, and I would be happy to support any that he might have as far as changing the culture and climate and making this a more welcoming space and a more belonging space for our Black parents and students.
So this is where I think community partners and collaborators could help. I think for some, this building can be a barrier for some Black parents, especially if they were a graduate of ETHS and they didn't feel comfortable as a student here. So if they're comfortable with other organizations in the community, and we know we have a lot of them in Evanston, then I think there's an opportunity for the high school to build a partnership with those organizations in the community. So that's one point, one way that I think we can do that, because usually parents feel, have a different relationship with nonprofits or an organization that's hiring their students as opposed to one that's educating their students, so how do we just leverage the positive relationships so that then we can work together as a community to build a better relationship for them at the high school? And then there's this idea that does not belong to me, but it's my oldest sister's idea, and she gives me a lot of her great ideas, and I use them as a parent. She said that she recalled when her son went to high school that there was some group that partnered parents. It was like a buddy situation where there was a parent that was partnered with another parent, and that parent that knew how to navigate the school was able to build a relationship with that parent that was a little, intimidated or insecure, or had bad situations with the high school, and they stayed together for the 4 years. So they went to the conferences together. They, they came up with questions to ask the teacher if they were having issues or what have you. And I thought that was a great idea because one thing I know that we appreciate in our community and should probably do more of that is build the village that it takes to raise our children. And so in order to do that, if I'm more comfortable with a parent that doesn't, that's trying to help me and not look down on me, then I'm more apt to have a stronger relationship with them and then use them to help me build my relationship with the school. So those are just two ideas that I think could help bridge that parent engagement that we're struggling with the high school.
Yeah, I think that there are a bunch of different reasons for this, and some of them have already been touched on, so I'll just touch on another one. I think that we also have a current issue with Black parents being talked down to by administrators, by some teachers, and things like that. So that leads to this current issue of feeling like you don't belong because you're being talked to like you don't belong. And the same goes for students. So I think dealing with that issue, that current issue as well, is really important. And then I also think that we need to deal with white parents who make the environment unsafe at functions, because that's a reality also. And we've got community organizations that are working on some of that, but we, as in me and the rest of us, need to work on our community to make that better.
I think one thing that's important is that we ask Black parents, we ask you what would make it, what would be more welcoming. We don't come to conclusions, and it's always important to listen. I think that communication is really important. I think that this is a big place with a lot going on, and knowing exactly what's happening and when and how to get involved and what, that's an ongoing challenge. And so, and that may, was mentioned working with the community, how can we communicate beyond the website, for instance? What are ways that we can get communication out about the high school, maybe in other community settings where it will reach people? And I think representation is important. So, you know, if you're wanting, if our goal is to make all parents, and in this case, we're talking about Black parents, feel comfortable, if you're wanting to get involved in something, say, parent ambassadors, I think that's easier if there's representation in parent ambassadors of Black parents. It's going to be more welcoming because it's not seen as this isn't a space or an activity for you. I think that's important. And I didn't have a great idea like the buddy system, but I was going to say personal reach out is important too. I mean, it's when those who maybe are feeling comfortable, are involved, then reach out to other parents to come bring them in. I think that that's a very human thing. We respond to being seen and heard and building relationships and having that personal invitation to get involved.
All right, so now we're at the part where this is going to be more like a rapid-fire questions so that we can get through as many questions as possible. But before we do that, is there anyone in the audience who would like to ask a question before I do my rapid-fire questions?
Okay.
Inclusive definition or description of effective bullying. All of you had facets of it. Is there anything that she said that any of you differ with? One. Secondly, young lady, Ms. Scott, you talked about black and brown and other things, and you talked about equity. What's your definition of equity, and how does that differ with racial equity?
So I think that you can look at equity. Oh, I'm sorry. I think you can look at different, so you can look at racial equity by itself, right? Where you're only looking at race to make things more equitable in any given thing, right? Or you can look at equity just in terms of gender, for example, or income. But in reality, any time that you're only looking at one facet, you're leaving people out. You're not targeting the people that that are most impacted, because if you look at the impact of low socioeconomic status, for example, and race, or marginalized gender and race, or disability and race, you have a very different picture than somebody who the only marginalized identity they have is race. Does that make sense?
Yes, I'd just like to say that the exclusion has always been race.
Mm-hmm.
You're not leaving anybody out. How do you include?
Right, exactly. So I think that when you're, for example, when you're creating a program for mentoring, if you divide it up by boys and girls, two different things, you're leaving out anybody who's non-binary. Do you see what I'm saying? Whereas if you have that vision to begin with, that intersectional vision, you would never do that. You would always make sure that your mentoring program for Black students, for example, always had a place for non-binary Black students. Does that make sense?
Yes, it makes sense. I can't say I agree with you.
I understand.
I think that blacks have been left out continuously, and the other areas are majorly important, but blacks always get shortchanged because we are always programming our thoughts and directions towards other groups and other areas. How can you mediate that situation, or to make it better, mitigate that situation to make it better?
So I'm not suggesting that if we did that mentoring program like I'm talking about, that we put all non-binary students, put all races of non-binary students. I'm saying it's still all Black students. just make sure we don't leave the non-binary Black students out. So it's still geared to equitable work for Black students. Does that make sense?
And did any of you differ with Ms. Carson's inclusive and defined position for an effective board member? I thought she said it all of you had aspects and facets of it. I'm just curious if anybody had any difference with that, because I thought that was
No, Monique always has the most complete answer.
I was going to say, I felt like I really learned something there, and I was really eager to hear what she had to say.
Yeah, I definitely support and agree with everything that she stated. I just didn't want to repeat things that she said, but I do definitely feel the same way.
Anybody else have any questions before I go into my true rapid fire question that you'll have a couple minutes to answer? Okay. Seconds would be good, but yes. All right. Okay, so the first one is, what opportunities for growth do we have in the area of post-secondary planning for our students? And are there any unique barriers or challenges for Black students?
What opportunities for girls?
What opportunities for growth? For growth. I'm sorry, for growth. Do we have an area of post-secondary? Sorry about that. And we'll start with Liz.
I'm sorry, could you just read the second part of that?
The second part is, are there any unique barriers or challenges for Black students when you think about the post-secondary planning for students?
Well, for post-secondary planning for Black students, I think the biggest challenge would be systemic racism. And as far as opportunity for growth, I think that ETHS definitely tries to make sure that our students have support, whether it's career or college planning, and that they make sure that students who need extra supports that maybe they're not getting at home, that they would have them, help them plan through the finances part of the college planning, the where to go to school planning, and any other types of supports that they would need for college attendance. But I do think that there's still racism at every level of life in the systems, and that students might encounter bias with their teachers or with their counselors who are helping them, and who maybe have lower expectations for them than they should or that they do for white children. And so that's definitely a barrier for our Black students that we need to be aware of and cognizant of and be working to dismantle that type of bias.
So I'll say the opportunity of growth is that every adult needs to see our Black students' potential and believe that they can achieve. So I think the growth is the mindset that we all have high expectations of our Black students. The barrier is that we're Black, and that is an issue that that white people have with Black students. And, you know, the question, I know this is rapid, but when we talk about equity, it's not that complicated. It is, you know, what it means is that we are treating and giving every student what they need to be successful. And it's not complicated if you understand that race is still a determinant in every category. And so until we see my son as your son, and you believe that he can achieve and you don't fear him because he's a Black young man, and you hold the same expectation for my son that you have for yours, then we won't, you know, be able to get past being performative when it comes to equity.
Okay, in the spirit of rapid fire, I'm just going to deal with the college portion of the planning. I think that Black students deserve Black counselors for college planning, ones that really understand Black student experience at specific colleges. I think that Black students belong at every single college in the U.S. and abroad. The reality is that the experiences of Black students are very different than white students, and being marginalized at certain different universities can be a very, very different experience. And I think that it's to everyone's benefit for students to know what they're getting into beforehand and to make decisions with all the knowledge that they can, and to have that mentoring when they're doing it, just to give the best possible outcome for success.
I think that a barrier is, yes, can be when you have a white counselor with a Black student. I was a white counselor. You have to, as a white counselor, you have to really make a conscious decision that you are going to be as reflective as possible about your own lens and biases that you're bringing to your counseling relationship, and how you're seeing things. People have talked about expectations. What is the way you're relating with someone saying more than what your words are saying? Are you truly showing that you have high expectations, you see the potential in every student, and what they can do? I think that there are still a lot of colleges and careers where there's an underrepresentation of Black students, Black individuals, and I think that that makes it difficult to can make it difficult for a student to see themselves, and it's our job to make sure that we help students see their own potential as well, and see that they do belong and they deserve to be able to pursue whatever they want to pursue. I think it's also really important that we're cognizant of the how it can be different to go to a PWI, predominantly white institution, versus an HBCU. And we have an obligation to make sure that we're informed about all different types of schools, and really talk to students about what their needs and wants are and best fit. And again, center the student and who they are and what they're telling you that they need and want, and best supporting them accordingly.
All right, the rapid fire isn't going as rapid as I would like. Part of the issue is, in fairness, is my questions are long-winded, but I'm hoping that your answers would be very short. So this one, I'm going to say it up front. This is a long-winded question, but it can have a very short answer. So as a board member and representative for ETHS, and considering the disparities of achievement between Black and white students, what partnerships with external entities would you advocate for to improve and have better outcome for Black students? And we'll start with you, Ms. Pikas.
I'm sorry, I didn't take that whole,
You missed that. Oh, okay, so basically, as a board member, you're basically a representative for ETHS. And because we know that there's a disparity in the achievement of the Black and white students, what external partnerships would you try to, whether it's, say you're like, oh, we want to work with Y or U, or we want to work with these different agencies, and that would help to improve that outcome. So,
Okay, I'll try to be. I think that we have some relationships right now that I think should be bolstered, and we can expand upon. Things like the Kappa League for young Black men. I've had students be part of, am I saying it correctly, Boule? Anybody familiar with that? Yeah. Evanston Scholars. Probably at the Y, there's something going on. I don't know. Well, maybe Monique will mention. But I think that those are partnerships that we could work together. And I think it's very important that those are partnerships where working closely together so that we're on the same page and coming at it with the same philosophy and mindset. That's a positive one.
Yeah, I think that we do. We have a lot of partnerships already. I think that I would look more, if we're talking about the opportunity gap specifically, I would look more at addressing what's going on in the classroom, from preschool and up, because I think that there's missing learning opportunities in the classroom, and I want to see that being more effectively used than our Black students constantly having to have the other stuff on the outside, if that makes any sense.
So I think I would convene a group of Black individuals to come together and to talk about what the issues are affecting our students as it relates to this gap that is persistent. And really try to think outside the box in terms of how we tackle that. So there's many layers to it, but that would be the first thing that I would do. It would just be all the Black leaders in the community, if there are fraternities, sororities, faith leaders, other Black scholars, just come all together and let us figure this out and see what the issues are. And I do believe that Dr. Campbell has started that.
So we do have some really beautiful community partnerships as far as mentoring and tutoring with Black adults for our Black students. We have the Black Men Lead partnership, which is between Northwestern University and ETHS, and they hold quarterly meetings and events to facilitate dialogue and community-based service. We have the Evanston chapter of Kappa Alpha Psi fraternity, who does peer-to-peer mentoring and covering lots of different topics like self-identity and training and social connection. And then we have, as of 2021, launched Camp Kumba, which is serves Black male students in 3rd through 8th grade, and it's a free summer camp facilitated by Northwestern University, and provides tutoring and masculinity mentoring and things like that. So I think just making those more available and perhaps expanding them so that more students can participate in those things would really be helpful as far as the opportunity gap that we're seeing. Yeah, that's it.
All right, as a ETHS alumni and a staff member, I drink the Kool-Aid, so this question is kind of hard, because if you say there's nothing that I need to change, that needs to be changed, that would be okay with me. But is there one thing that stands out for you that you would like to see changed or improved here at ETHS? One specific, it could be a logistic thing, it could be, I'd like the bell schedule to be different, but is there any one thing that you're aware of that you would like to see change or improved here at ETHS?
Yeah, this is kind of a tough one to think of just one priority when I feel like we have a lot of different priorities and things that we need to be addressing. I feel like the most persistent issue that we have is the predictability of race and academic outcomes. And it is something that the school has been vigorously working on for many, many years now. And they do see it as a top priority, and we've seen movement and we've seen improvement, but there still exists this gap between Black and brown and white students, and it's just something that we don't feel okay with. It's not something that we feel like we can live with this is fine. We still have to make sure that there's an urgency to keep addressing that.
So for me, it would be that every adult at ETHS, this is hard because, so I'll just say it, that our adults know the names and the faces of our Black boys that are most challenging. That we know who they are, that we are working to figure them out. And I'm not saying that this is not happening, because I know that it is. But I want every Black boy to feel like they belong at ETHS. And so if I could have that, I would retire and not be on the board. But that is what I truly want. I want what my son had and the feeling he had being a student here to be felt by every student.
Yeah, I want the kids that are not being seen, and when they are being seen, being misunderstood, for people to take a minute to see them, to listen to them, and to try to understand.
Yeah, this is hard to say one thing, and maybe mine's too broad, but I think that we start a lot of really pretty incredible things here in terms of strategies and initiatives and programs. But what I would want to be different is that we find and make the time to take a minute, just to take a minute and really look at what's working or what aspects of something are working and aren't. Ask students and teachers about that and really take that in before we move to the next thing.
Okay, I think we've come to our final question, and we'll start with Ms. Picard. When you look at all the equity work that we've done here at ETHS, do you think we've had a fair amount of success, good, bad, and how would you make that determination, even moving forward, as to how effective some of the equity work that we embark on? How would you make that determination?
The first part was,
When you look at equity work, do you think we've had success in some of the work that we've done?
How would we see? I think it's up and down. I think there's been some successes, some forward progress, but I think that at the root of what's preventing equity is really, really deep-set systemic racism, and sometimes we take a few steps forward in one aspect and a step back someplace else. So I think there's an important balance between technical solutions and hearts and minds. And so I think that when we've made a change, like let's say pathway to honors and trying to, approach some detracking, there's what's that change? But then do people really believe and understand why we're doing it and believe in it? And so it's that heart and mind and technical. So I think I think when we're looking moving forward, how do we tell if we're successful? Part of it is, I mean, we have to look how well our students are doing, and I think we have to look, again, not just at what I will call the technical, that would be graduation rates, and students have viable plans for after graduation, and they have great, decent grades and all that. But it's also, what are we hearing when we're talking to and surveying students about their sense of belonging and their actual social experience here at the high school, because that's just as important.
Yeah, so I've been all through the data. I thoroughly analyzed the data before I made the choice to run, all the publicly available data, anyway, that I could get my hands on. And I think that we've made great strides with the equity work that has been done for Black students without any intersecting marginalized identities. When you start putting the other marginalized identities on, that's where you see plateaus. So that's where I think that the work needs to be targeted now. As far as what would I continue looking at, I would continue looking at those data. When would I be happy? I'm a data person, but I'm also, human. Those data are people. There are students. I'm not going to be happy until they're all graduating, they're all happy, they're all doing well. That's when I'll be happy.
So absolutely, I guess I drank the Kool-Aid too. I absolutely believe that Evanston Township has done well with the equity work, with creating an environment for courageous conversations. And I'll tell you why, because now everyone in the community is trying to mimic what ETHS did. So now the equity work is being seen at District 65. Now it's being seen at the city of Evanston. Now nonprofits are embracing that. Now the community is, reading books and embracing that. I think the problem with that is that people may think that when you do that, you're done. Equity work is a process. It is not, now I know, what it means to experience or to understand white fragility, and now I'm equified. No, that's not equity work. It is, how do you continue to face your own biases, and then be willing to change your heart for the betterment of our children. So if you think that a training makes it happen, that's not true. I think where ETHS is that we've gone through the conversations, the cultural competency, understanding diversity. We all love Evanston because of the diversity. Embracing equity, trying to create an environment of inclusion. And we have to take all of that and make sure that in that we have been successful in creating a high school that everyone feels like they belong. From our teachers, to our visitors, to our students, to everyone, to our staff. And so it is a process. It is not a one and done. It is, it doesn't happen overnight because we are working with people and they have their own biases and they have yet to face them. And so we have to keep coming back. And for a student of color, a Black student in particular, a Black teacher or Black administrator, a Black superintendent, it's exhausting, but it's important. And so we keep doing what we do to try to make sure others understand how important it is for them to fully embrace equity.
Yes, I think that ETHS's equity initiatives over the years have made a huge impact on this school. I think that number one, we have honest conversations, and we use words like racism and systemic racism and white supremacy culture, and we have honest conversations about what that means and how it impacts our students. And I can assure you that most schools are not having conversations like that. And that is what makes me so proud to be here, and that is what attracted me to ETHS to begin with, was just the fact that we're talking about it and we're willing to be honest and get uncomfortable and do something about it. I think that our initiatives have been very beneficial to our Black and brown students. Our Black students consistently outperform their peers of color at other schools. They're doing very well when you compare to other schools, but when we are talking about our own school, we still need to look at the fact that there is this opportunity gap that exists between white and Black students. And so as far as how we can measure how things are going, we can look at data and the academics, and we can also look at other factors like graduation rate and extracurricular participation, attendance, things like that, to get an understanding of the whole student, and not just the academics, but to really work on the whole student and their whole being in the school and all those things that can lead to that sense of belonging that we prioritize so much here at ETHS.
All right. I thought I was woke, but then someone dropped equified on me, and I was like, wow. Okay. So what we're going to do now is give each candidate 1 minute to do what we would consider like a parting shot, like, okay, the takeaway that we should all have from each one as we, as constituents, consider voting for each. And Liz, you'll start this off. Thanks.
Thank you for having us tonight and the amazing questions that came through. They were very challenging and interesting, and I appreciate us being able to answer them because we haven't had a lot of questions like that so far on our forum tour. So I just want to say, as far as myself representing the students on the school board, it would be a huge honor to me if I could continue for another 4 years to serve for this school. I am willing to be uncomfortable and have uncomfortable conversations and talk about my role as a white person and how I contribute to bias in my own life and work, but being able to be honest about it and listen and learn. And so I feel like I can bring my experience to the next 4 years after everything we've been through with the pandemic and the hiring of the superintendent. I can bring that experience to the board, and I think that would be valuable, and I hope I can earn your vote. Thank you.
So thank you again. You're right, Liz. We've been able to have conversations here that we haven't been able to have at other forums, and that's why I love EBAN so much, because this is really where the rubber hits the road. And I think it's so critical when you're campaigning to be a school board member that you not only talk about us or Black students or Black parents, but you are really in the community where we exist and we live. It's not cool to just talk about equity if you're not visiting where we are, if you're not campaigning where we are. And so, you know, even as someone that's been on the board for 8 years, and it's important for me to campaign throughout my community, and when I say my community, I mean Evanston. And there's not any place in this community, in this town, that I don't go. And we have to be comfortable because we don't represent a neighborhood or just a group or a street or a block. We represent our students, and they live throughout Evanston. And so you have to be uncomfortable going to a Black church. I go to a synagogue, and I talk to everyone. So I think the bottom line here is that I'm not only a school board member, I'm a community leader. And I love my community, and I love Evanston Township, and I will, speak on its behalf any chance I get. And does that mean that we're perfect? Absolutely not. But if we're not that perfect and we have all these issues that people are talking about, then please tell me why our students are showing up every day. Please help me understand why they are here every day. Now, they may not be re-engaged to go to class, but they come here every single day. And that is because they feel safe here. That is because they trust adults that are here. So really get to know who we are, and then figure out how you can help us be better. But it has to come, and I try to always come from an advantage that is positive. First, because I'm leading students, and that is collaborative, as well, because I need everybody to get on board and help me lead them. And it's always with a thoughtful mindset about how our decisions will impact everyone. So I am honored to serve this high school, and I would be overjoyed to serve it again for another 4 years as we continue to do this work. So thank you for having me.
Thanks so much for having us tonight. I think that this is probably our last forum of this campaigning season, and this is just such a great way to close up the forums, to be here with all of you tonight. So again, I'm just looking to bring a intersectional focus to the equity work that we're doing, and I'm really encouraged. I'm encouraged by all the conversations that I've had with families and especially with students. I'm encouraged by the number of students who've reached out to me just, without me having reached out to them, saying how much they appreciate the message that they're hearing from me and from the campaign and the forums. It makes me think that these are things that they're wanting people to be saying. They're wanting to be seen and to be heard. So I think that it's important that we talk about these issues and we address these concerns. So thanks again for having me tonight.
Thank you very much for having this, and I'm really glad to be here. I just want to say that I really enjoy and value being challenged, talking about things, having honest conversations. I think that it's an honor, and it's really a privilege, I believe, if elected to be on the board. What happens at the high school, what happens with young people is so important for us as a community and for just our greater society and our future. I like to celebrate ETHS is super important to me, and this community has become my community and my home, and I've been here now a long time. But it also, I'm the kind of person who always asks myself, what more could we do? So what should we celebrate? What's working, but what's not? How do we put our words into action? And how do we just really carry out our work with fidelity? So those are the kinds of guiding questions that I have going on for me as I approach my profession, or in this case, I would as a member of the board. I would really like to accept the challenge of being part of working to make sure that all of our students, with all of their identities, are we do the absolute best we can so that they can reach their potential and have a positive experience during high school.
Okay, I want to thank the candidates for coming out and being willing to answer the hard questions. I want to wish them the best of luck in their campaign. I want to thank the audience for coming out, and you had a question?
Excuse me, for interrupting. May I just ask a quick question? This is a courageous integrity question. Is there anyone on this forum here who would not support the mission and direction of the current superintendent? Yes or no?
Okay. Without further ado, I want to again thank everybody for coming out and have a wonderful evening. Thanks.